TEQUILA Sunrise, 1988-1989. A Warner Brothers. Mel Gibson, Michelle Pfeiffer, Kurt Russell, Raul Julia, Arliss Howard, JTWalsh, Gabriel Demon, Ann Magnuson, Ari Gross. I really don't care about the headlining star except for two of them. As Dale McCusack, and you're going to hear that name a lot, Michelle Pfeiffer, Joanne Valinari. Movie Club Movies Queen. She is top of the mountain here. So many movies. Check out all the episodes. We highlighted her a few episodes ago, and at the same time, I am always dropping a title from her. I have so many. Married to the Mob has been something that's sort of recently been in the cycle, and I'm still on the fence. It's a good performance by everyone involved, but it kind of like is jarring, kind of gives me a headache visually, but you know, some art does that. You know, Bad Brains isn't necessarily a mellow Sunday morning, but I love a good Bad Brains record. Lieutenant Nick Frisha. Kurt Russell, another queen of TMCMS. No, just kidding. We know he is top of the mountain. Also, we covered Captain Ron. Classic 5-star. Give it up for Kurt Russell in this movie. Raul Julia, and maybe a 90s icon. I think a lot of conversations seem to just point him to that discussion. Addams Family, he's a knockout. Raul Julia we know from Addams Family, Street Fighter. He does The Rookie, and then his career starts to fade from health. This is a movie release for mainstream America, and his career is fizzling on the sea surface. Arliss Howard, we know from To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, classic actress, I know from a movie called Streetwalkers. Arliss Howard is also in Jurassic Park, The Lost World. These are two of the longest titles in showbiz. A movie titled Plain Clothes, released before this, has a good VHS cover. However, I don't know much about it. The Sandlot was released after this. All Arliss Howard. JTWalsh we know from Hannah and Her Sisters, Tin Men, Good Morning Vietnam, The Big Picture, The Grifters, Misery, Russia House with Michelle Pfeiffer and Sean Connery, Backdraft, National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, Red Rock West with Nicolas Cage and Dennis Hopper, Breakdown, on and on and on. He is in countless amount of movies. Ann Magnuson is from Desperately Seeking Susan, Tank Girl, Small Soldiers with Phil Hartman and Kirsten Dunst. Ari Gross, Just One of the Guys, Minority Report, a usual bit player, but I think he went on to do more TV. I don't know for sure, but he's always been sort of in the background of things I've seen in those 80s and 90s. This one's written and directed by RobertTowne, who's been a major contributing part of a good handful of 80s, 90s blockbusters and continued faves. A lot of TMCMS sort of extended research and catalog stuff that I've always kind of had conversations with and suggested by. Movie is written and directed by RobertTowne, who has been a major contributing part of a good handful of 80s, 90s blockbusters and continued faves, including action-ready movies. Please feel free to follow ABZ Podcasts for their research and insight on him as a creator and unique Hollywood creature. The movie starts quietly, and you just have to pay attention to the details and make a puzzle of what your surroundings. Radio static. Why are we out here? Why is this the place? Because it looks like we're dealing dope. We hear Mel Gibson in a low-tone mumble to his partner here, and he sounds like they may be moving their car, waiting for a meetup, most likely criminal. Mel sees some high beams from a car ahead, and we hear him surprisingly shout, "Lower your lights at least! Lower your lights, goddammit!" JC, we're just meeting here to be sure we're not being followed. He's got the cash. Let's wait and test it. How did I get here? Why not wait in the car? Our first actual frame of film is a shadowy silhouette of our two main characters here, Mel Gibson as Dale Makuzek and Irie Gross as Andy Leonard. The next shot is them walking into a stairwell, and for me, the music shifts to a standard stock movie music, and I'm thinking we're still tough guys, remaining tough for a handoff. The wash of the scene may be questionable. We are going along with these two. Yeah, it's like we're sort of in a tough, gritty scene, but then the music is like wah 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 wah, and it's like, what? Mac notices peanut shells outside as if a parked car had been eating and throwing them outside. And then he finds more on the steps as they take, walking up. The bad music continues as we enter a hotel apartment. Mel is checking things out. His character is reminding me of going through similar motions of Burt Reynolds' character in Heat. Mac also has a Louis Vuitton suitcase. Is there a bag of drugs? Is that the focus? And Matt fixes the toilet top to hide the bag. Mac fixes the toilet top to hide the bag. Maybe bag of drugs, but he's putting it inside that top of the toilet. Returns to the bed with the case. Knock at the door, and a tall blonde male body enters. He's a nobody, and behind him is Mr. Nick Fresha. And Andy seems amateur or lacks experience as Kurt Russell enters. A quick trade-off of alpha wits. Andy invited Mac, and he was not expected. Nick says he doesn't like new people, and Mac returns. With Andy, I think you may benefit from the same. He asked to leave, he takes a tinkle before he goes, and Kurt says he will join him. Nick and Mac must have some history here, and we see our combining of Hollywood action headliners, Kurt and Mel. Nick wants to know why Mac isn't retired. Mac is just there to help his attorney move coke paid to him. Mac was supposed to play lookout, so very similar to Bert in Heat and Carlito in Carlito's Way. Mac is smart and sensitive with setup. Nick and Mac out of the hotel. Later! Mac is tipped off not to return to the car, and Mac says doesn't expect any coke to be in the room. And they're just like, hey, I wouldn't trust this guy if I was you. And the other guy's saying, I wouldn't trust this guy if I was you. So then they join each other, so to say, in the bathroom. However, it's outside. Or sorry, Mel takes a leak, heads outside. Nothing suspicious about that. But Kurt joins him. Nothing suspicious about that. But I guess we're just reading into this. And again, welcome to the TMCMS movies, because I love these type of awkward moments. And you're just on the roller coaster ride of Hollywood stardom. Mac was supposed to play lookout. So very similar to Bert and Heat and Carlito in Carlito's way. And what I can clarify to the audience out there, because it took me like a night to think about all this, because I don't know, maybe I've just been watching too many nice comedies, but the idea here is that Andy has been paid with coke, and he's like, look, I helped you out, Mac McCuzak. Come check things out while I pass this off to somebody. And what McCuzak knows is that Fresha is like with the police or what have you. I'm skipping my notes here, but I'm just explaining that McCuzak is hip to who this dude is, and we're trying to all stay out of jail. This is the beginning story. So he's like, dude, I really just came here to help this dweeb who was paid this coke. So really, find out who paid him if you really want to, be busting people. I can't see him get busted. As dumb as he is my lawyer. We watch Mac escape the swarm of officers in patrol. He was hiding under an entrance awning. He has his best fugitive sequence, running across a freeway, sliding down side berms, falling into water, and using a payphone. Here it is. It's really great. I dislike this actor, but he's a physical actor and can run and jump, and he's doing some really smooth moves. It's not necessarily parkour, but I can liken it to Daniel Craig or William Shatner. Mac has called a restaurant. He mumbled to himself while running that it's 8:45. I am glad I was smart enough to put it together socially. He may have something planned. He uses a payphone to call Fine Restaurant and talks to a pretty voice that is offering him, us, exposition dump. Exposition dump. He does have a reservation and continues to talk to them. And as we move along with our other characters, they continue to play back a recording of Mac talking on the phone. With the restaurant and our service associate here, she sounds like she's telling him the specials and maybe assisting him with what he usually orders. I do hear at one point a TEQUILA SUNRISE. Drink is on the menu. LOL. We also hear about a birthday, I think. I don't know if it's hers or Mac's. And this is like really subtle. I don't know if everybody's speakers is going to pick it up, but literally in the background, as we're seeing a couple other characters from, we move away from this hotel and then getaway scene. It's not as heightened as maybe other movies. We're just seeing, this guy kind of gets himself into trouble, but he has sort of a level head, and we still don't know what the phone call was really all about. Is that code for something? We don't know yet. I also want to mention that at a couple points, we will hear some kitchen chatter with sounds as if it's an Italian and I can't make out what is said. It's like something was dropped. I don't know. I can fill in a bit more in a couple scenes from now. He tough talks the payphone. You are the wobbliest. And off screen, falls into the water. Is that a haiku? Are we having fun here? Nick doesn't understand why so many have been here. Nick doesn't understand why so many have been there, and is told Nick authorized. Nick joins JTWalsh as Hal in a camper van, where there is ice and scotch readily available. Hal and another officer are surveillance, staking out. Maybe this is the origin of the peanuts. The phone conversation is playing, and it is hard to place it in the timeline, but possibly Mac is ordering at the table now, and Lieutenant Nick requests he hear it for himself and then wants to go talk to Mac in person. What's good here? I missed dinner. Mac squirms and says, a little pasta, in a funny delivery. Mac has taken a drink of a creamy tequila sunrise. Rigatoni, how about another tequila sunrise? The service continues over the recording. So, from the phone call, and like I said, the characters we're following is Nick Fresha as he makes his way from the hotel to this like surveillance van that I don't know if it's necessarily parked at that same hotel anymore, but we can maybe fill in that this is the origin of the Peanuts and that Nick, played by Kurt Russell, is just freely having scotch and soda or whatever, scotch on the ice, in this van. And now they've got Mac, played by Mel Gibson, still on recording at this restaurant. And I was just mentioning that you can hear kitchen chatter, but you're having to put all this together with the frames, and I felt like my sound was reasonably subtle and my screen reasonably darkened. I just feel like it's sort of a adult, gritty, maybe romantic-driven drama, crime drama. Kurt Russell as Lieutenant Nick Fresha meets Mac at the restaurant table. He repeats the rigatoni dish to Mac, and of course Mac is hip to where he would know that info. Kurt is spitting hot flame here, going toe-to-toe with Mac. Heat between these two, but tension is playing also. Nick looks to his side and barks, "Dinner's over, Bart. Pay for the tab at the bar." You just had the lead of LA County Narcotics asking about you, and something about being white will show through in the papers, which is an awful race joke. Maybe about having a darkened criminal picture printed on the paper. Awful. But it's 1988. He made lieutenant last week. He's the head of LA County Narcotics. It will be announced next week. Mac growls back about picking up smoking again. Only kidding. He basically says, "You won't catch me for anything, and I'm not doing anything currently." "Don't embarrass me. I just got the title," is Nick's basic response. Mac insists he try the sandabs that just arrived at the table. The tension is at a palpable point. Nick takes a juicy bite and thinks they're terrific. They both eat away for a moment. What's sandabs? Has anybody ever had that before? I'm not a big seafood explorer. I've had a lot of different types of seafood, but I've never heard of sandabs. It almost sounds like, is it like scallions, like seasoned some way? I don't know. Is it like prawns seasoned in a certain way? Mel Gibson is loving them. Nick is like, "I just think something is going on." And Mac overreacts. "Don't stop being a detective just because there's no crime," Nick says with great brooding confidence. "Maybe there is something you don't want me to know about." The two are eye to eye at the table with a flower in the center between them. If Stallone had a hold of a line like that, it would have been in Tango and Cash, also starring Kurt Russell. Just as we see our handsome lead males go face-to-face between a lampshade and a dingy tabletop flower, our service assistant arrives to greet us and do the 5 and 5. 5 bites or 5 minutes check-in. "Mr. McCusack, there are 2 fish you hadn't tried, and they're excellent. Michelle Pfeiffer as maitre d' or host of a fine upscale restaurant, Joanne Valinare. When Nick asks about the fish, her response is, 'I thought I would surprise you.' Mac introduces Nick, and Joanna exits to other table fires. We hear some kitchen chatter here. Nick is keen to Mac versus Joanne attraction. Nick is keen to Mac v. Joanne attraction. "So how about it?" Nick says. "Whatever you're doing, Do it somewhere else and don't embarrass me. Don't make me look bad. Max says I have an accounting problem. You know, Colombians don't know something about accounting. Yeah, they don't know how to count. Nick concludes, one more thing. Mac overreacts. One more bite of those sandabs? Here is our continued kitchen struggles, which is in the back of the house, at a kitchen table, and I don't necessarily know what's going on here. I have my notes here. I had you 2 drinks. A kitchen employee may have been given drinks by the bartender, and Joanne, with so many words, concludes, well, if we cannot fire a nephew of the owner, we can get rid of 1 bartender. And a joke maybe about additional cars to take comes up, and Joanna ushers our employee out. It's not necessarily a clear scene, but maybe it's like neighborly of Joanna. Nick is seen listening to the recording from last night where Joanne and Mac talking. It's Joanne's birthday in this recording, and Arturo told Mac that info. Nick gets to tell his supervisor Hal and mentions that it seems Mac is up to nothing. Mac wants to continue pressing investigation. Hal, your friend is not going to get away with what he's getting away with for 15 years and just retire. We go into Hal's office where a tray of coffee or water has been delivered, and there are a couple officers also listening with Hal. Nick walks in and is putting more attitude together, seeing a flamboyant effort to frame Mac. Nick splashes Hal with the drinks and remains calm but demanding, shouting, you came into my office and you request me to put up false evidence in order to put away someone? He is pissed. Taking over my office, manufacturing evidence? I don't put weeds in my yard just so I can pull them. I just wanted to take a moment that within the struggle in this office, some of the other officers, but they're like, I don't know, office officers. One of the guys reminds me of a writer named Gary DeVore that during the O.J. Simpson and Princess Diana summer where the trouble with them was happening, that literally that same week, that same month, this writer went missing, and he had made a phone call from like the desert of Arizona on his way back to Los Angeles, and he never arrived, and his wife, partner, made the effort to put it out there that he was missing, and there is a great podcast that followed this up. I was a young person, and O.J. Simpson just took over the headlines for years, so I didn't necessarily know about this, but it had this familiar 90s feel to it. He's an interesting screenwriter. He wrote similar movies to RobertTowne. He would have been in the circle, maybe in some write-up rooms and stuff with some of the various writers of this time and of this ilk, and a podcast that came out that uncovered a lot of the facts and straightened out a very mysterious story. Gary DeVore, a podcast, did a good job covering his disappearance and friendships, as well as this recent article showcasing an incredible imagination for the action-packed thrillers. I'm going to give you the full title: Campside Media, an investigative podcast series, Witnessed, Fade to Black, Season 5. Gary DeVore is the screenwriter, and I'd like to just mention the detail I have on him is that he was known for having like a crooked pinky. It might have been on both hands, but this gentleman near the door as Kurt Russell charges in fits a similar description. However, he may be on the rounder side of Gary DeVore, but I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, and literally I've not talked to anybody about this. So, holler at me, podcast. I don't put weeds in my yard just so I can pull them. The tape is asking Mac about skiing, and Joanna and him must be talking on a personal call. Or is this at the table? This is in the office, on recording, and Nick walks out. He's had enough, giving the side eye to our handsless screenwriter, Gary DeVore, or is he Terrence Malick? We are now at an avocado packing warehouse. Mac is a grade A forklift driver. He's got certification and everything. His ship supervisor comes running out as he's driving the F-lift. And in the background, this avocado distribution center has got a great sign. The sign reads as Hydropore, Leaky Pipe Irrigation, the avocado grower's dream. There's a play on that for the TMCMS episode cover. Get a chance to check that out. Created by yours truly, JustinJustin. His shift supervisor comes running out as he's driving the F-lift. He's got bills to pay. Maybe these people will kill him. They won't kill, just break his legs. As he passes an alleyway, a VW Jetta pulls up. Max says, "Here's the real money, fiend." "Oh, I broke a nail, oh my." She is Mac's baby mama. Friend or foe, I don't know. She needs $10,000 for a car repair. And she talks about them having a child. And she talks about them having a child. And how she has been covering for him, saying he sells rubber hoses? Is this an avocado orchard equipment distributor? Everyone needs Mac. Now see the whole frame fill up with paperwork, reading as receipts from the DEA for $11,000. And there are a few of these. July of 1988, on and on and on and on someone's desktop. Hal steps into Nick's office and apologizes. Nick also apologizes. And Hal starts to list the altercations with Mac from their past. It sounded like they were either troublemakers together as younger men, or Nick brought in Mac several times. At one moment, Nick mentions he was in the ocean while Mac was busted for smoking a joint. So maybe they were selling cannabis on the Southern California beaches, or of course Mexico's coast. I don't know. Was Nick a surfer? Were they both surfing? It's really just mentioned without any more ad-lib. Origins of Point Break, or this is a few years after Point Break. Hal mentions Nick has excellent reputation as a cop and has moved out of Nick's offices. Hal says, "You can ask me about the case. I would like to be of some support." Nick asks, "Who is your snitch?" "I cannot tell you that." Dos, 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 cuatro, dos, siete. Mac is on a sunny payphone, talking Espanol to Jabba the Hutt's subtitles. Dos, 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 cuatro, dos, siete. Mac explains they are watching me, and with an aging streetwise voice, our phone call is explaining how successful criminals will usually find attention, and getting out of the game is no exception. People will want to take him out for being as good as he was. It goes by fast, and for me, there was a lot of personality here. I had a problem focusing on the quick subtitles. Could you spot me, Seven? I haven't played ping pong in a long time. We see Nick almost take out a pedestrian, pulling up to our neighborhood sheriff's office, and the landscaping being taken care of by felons in jail suits, while we see one officer supervising. Nick walks into an interrogation of Joanne. So loose ends are tied up here with the kitchen drama at first hand. Because I think, in the same room is the young man that was drinking and driving from that small kitchen scene. Very subtle. I don't know how else to explain it. Andy is Mac's attorney. He is the brother of the owner, I think, and he is helping our kitchen staffer get his green card. Oh yeah, Andy from the very beginning is also there because he's an attorney. And he was the one in a DUI scenario. Sorry, and everybody I just mentioned is figuring out a DUI from the kitchen helper. And she threatened to fire the bartender. All of that is sort of wrapping up here. Hal is attempting to intimidate and threaten for more info she may know. Joanne is playing strong and sturdy as she has a major attorney herself and threatens to bring him in on these details. So Michelle Pfeiffer is firing up. Nick icebreakers this situation and handles himself like a gentleman lawman. as Joanne passes around her own car to get in and thank Nick. She seems to come alive. While at the restaurant, she seems lifeless, robotic, and reading lines. At this moment, she seems to warm up to Nick and wonders about his friendship with tequila, chugging, big tipper, Mac. Hal steps up and tries to elbow nudge Nick. Why did you let the kitchen guy go? She's tough. She kicked your ass, Nick says to Hal outside their offices, and Joanne has driven away. Heavy 80s sax. As we see Mac's Porsche pull up, he's got a 2-story and the avocado. Arliss Howard is a roommate, and he has 2 girlfriends over. He has some really triggering dialogue with his pal Mac. They have some quick back and forth, including using ping pong keywords, which leads Bert, Axa, excuse me. Okay, well, I'm confused here. I just have, excuse me, Mac, to ask a sign, Arliss, okay. Well, edit all that. Arliss, who is Greg Lindroff, 2 G's, 2 F's. We go right back to the restaurant. Greg is on a payphone. Joanne and Nick are dining. There is a great rain shot, and Greg mentions Caesar salad. Mac is showering. He says, go ahead, drop it off. I'll bet I'll never make it in there. Then we're back with beers again at Mac's. This time, no ladies. They have a comfy beanbag discussion about Carlos and getting into the game. We are in the middle of something. Greg is saying, he's at Orville and Wilbur's. You put a Cadillac's key down? Your Porsche keys down? I don't know where we're going with that. It's just, we're in the middle of an explanation. You've got a Rolex. He's got Timex. He's a cop. On the TV they are watching while getting drunk is a patrol cruiser in an LA neighborhood. Very of the time. 27 million street value. Mac asks, what street? Arliss slides this gem of a line. When are you going to let me in the game? And we end on Arliss rolling over in a cutting shot. What I'm saying to you is for your own benefit. Beer in hand, coke nose, dope nose. He's slurring over the idea that if Nick wasn't a cop, he would be a bad friend talking to a girl Mac is interested in, at a place he likes to go to. And Mac has a lot of materialism to back it up. Mac says he would have to bust his buns from his bed because he's going to sleep. And Arliss is doing some really interesting acting because this is really mumbly, and he's also like, they've had a few beers, and Arliss is just a deadbeat. He's like sort of rolling to talk to him, just like slouching, but sort of keeps rolling to a side as he continues to talk. So it's just, you don't always see people acting so slouched anymore, you know. I have a clip for Nick v. Joanne at their table as they dine together.
You were saying?
You're still suspicious of me and Mr. McKeeson.
Yeah.
You actually think we're in business together?
No.
I don't date the customers, Nick. Especially when they drive $50,000 cars and always paying cash.
And you'd heard about Mac.
Well, sooner or later you hear everything in a restaurant.
And he's never asked you out.
No. You're still suspicious.
If I was, what difference would it make? You'd talk me out of it.
That's not it.
No?
No. You're just suspicious of any woman who hasn't slept with you.
Joanne, that is a wildly off the wall sometimes.
What is it, Nick? You need some chapstick or some lip gloss or something? Because your lips keep getting stuck on your teeth. Or is that your idea of a smile?
That's my idea of a smile. Oh, man, you are. You're tough.
Oh, the swordfish! Nick and Joanne Valinari are dining together, and the camera is pulling us in by seeing the back of the house. So to say, they are at the last table left, the bar is emptied out, the bartender Arturo receives the keys from the valet stand, which he brings to the tables. We see some keys on the table in a scene, which is interesting, as we now see the two most glamorous table flies since the 1940s. Michelle Pfeiffer as Joanne and Nick, played by Kurt Russell, are magnetic. Dimly lit for atmosphere, the two are lit by the gold in their auras. We are getting a sneak peek into the conversation they are having at their table. Nick gets a chance to find out more about the mysterious, charming restaurant runner. He mentions that the way she answered Hal was like reading off a menu, and she thinks he's got an answer for everything. She follows up by calling him a bad boy, bad boy. He begins to stroke her hair or neck, and this is getting close. She asks him about his lighter, which is Redondo High School, and he makes a move to stay a little longer. With red eyes and closing to do, she says, "How about espresso?" Hot! And Nick has been smoking cigarettes this whole movie that are all long, I swear, and they kind of look comical, vaudevillian. She's in the bar area firing up the espresso. She notices that the envelope that had been passed to her now is on the counter, along with her espresso project, and it has been dripping rainwater, smearing some on the ink with her name. She goes to the wine cellar and attempts to move a barrel. Nick offers to help, and she explains the ceiling has a skylight window that allows to pool with water. And then what? Splash! Nick in his government salary suit are soaked. Michelle Pfeiffer, the actress, looks pleasantly satiated and giggles. It's a meet cute, and Nick kisses her. She embraces Nick. Smooth sax playing. We see nothing. We hear Greg's voice over and a framed photo of Mac in red trunks as a lifeguard. Next to David Duchovny and David Spade. Is this Andy or Nick? I'm just joking. It's just random people, but I'm calling out names. I'm just also want to describe what the picture looks like, and I don't know if they're trying to show that Andy or Nick, they were all buddies. None of that is for sure. Greg is saying it's not unnatural to part ways from your high school friends. There's no contract that you have to continue being friends with your high school friends. Okay, I did not know this was an element of the movie. We see next to the picture a bachelor bar setup of tequila, and we see Mac drinking a TEQUILA Sunrise. A ice-filled pitcher. A cat is at the back door, it's raining, and he's smoking a crazy cigarette. Or it's a joint. Automatically friends for life. Greg. Like a tire, there's only so much wear until you're flat air. Okay, keep your shirt on. So Mel Gibson, Mac, is just chilling. It's a rainy day, and he's gone to fetch the cat at the door. But Greg, who's obviously, wouldn't you notice that this dude is like a user, a burnout, a louse? He must have done a lot of stuff, and sometimes when people are in jail, they've got buddies. I guess, is that what Greg, this roommate dude, is? Because he's just talking game to Mac when they hang out over voiceover, and we're getting these 1988 sunset casual. It's Nick's office, and he is picking it out like carpeting and what looks like wallpaper. A phone call he takes is from Joanne, as Hal comes to greet him for the day. A guy is repainting his door with his name and title. He mentions that this is a personal call, and I sensed some judgment coming from Hal. It's Joanne, and she asks if Nick ever works. Oh, God. I'll die if I don't see you. How about checking out the competition with me this weekend so we can both keep working? Mac is at the bar. Where's Joanne? Arturo, an Italian ADR. She's taking a few days off. It's all like bad ADR. Mr. McCusack, your table is ready. He's got a fresh tequila sunrise at the bar. Nick is at breakfast, lunch patio joint with Joanne. This reminds me of a place in Soma SF on Brennan. In the back. You can get some like ceviche tacos. She holds the envelope with her smeared name on it, along with her mail from before when she was taking calls at the bar. Very funny detail I saw. I have the letter recorded. Okay, I want to read what's in the envelope. Dear Ms. Valinare, I am throwing a party June 10th, which I would very much like to have you cater. There will be approximately 60 guests to serve. An assortment of your pastas would be delightful. Thank you, Mr. McCusack.